Well, you can have two.
It's fun to mix it up during the COVID, right?
Hey, whoa.
Hey.
Kind of a meeting is this anyways?
Yeah, right.
I'm not on board. I'm team
Kevin, take her out of here, man.
Yeah.
No, don't be mean.
It is actually past 5 o'clock.
All right, guys.
We're working on it here.
Everybody's going down.
If you want to do that, just let me know.
All right, then we've got Miss Anahit here.
I'm here.
All right.
Hello.
And Maureen.
Hello.
All right.
And hi guys, hello everybody. Hi Maureen, hi Anahit, hi Kevin Kovacs, hi Jessica. Hope everyone is doing great. Thanks again for joining us. This will be a 4-day group of sessions of Mountain Time at 5, sponsored by the National Federation of the Blind of Colorado, because we're not doing a Mountain Time at 5 call this Friday at 5. Instead, we're encouraging folks to do a 6 o'clock Mountain call with President Rick Obono. You'll be able to send questions in advance, and during the event, we'll get some information on Colorado Talk and other lists about how to do that. We're expecting probably over 1,000 people, so encourage your chapter members around the country to join President Rick Obono as he does the May presidential release live from Baltimore, probably from the bunker under his row house there in Baltimore is probably where he'll do it. Also want to encourage folks to register for the convention. We've been encouraging folks the last few days at Mountain Time at 5 to do that. Over 1,000 people are already registered. It's going to be the largest gathering of blind people in the United States, if not the world. And there'll be all kinds of interesting ways for all of us to contribute. If you're registered, it's free to register. Go to the website, nfb.org, and convention, and register, because there's going to be, I'm guessing some companies will do some show pricing, convention pricing. There'll be some things that we can take advantage of. Also, if you have ideas for the convention, please be in touch with President Rick Obono, email, office of the president at nfb.org. I think that's all I have. I did post something on Colorado Talk today from me I want to mention briefly. My good buddy Curtis and I have a tendency to like to argue and debate and kind of mix it up a little bit. And we got into a nice discussion on the philosophy call Friday, which I love the discussion. But I think that we need to make sure that this is a real safe place for people. And you don't need to hear, Barack Obama and Rush Limbaugh go at it. You need, or whoever, just making up names there, folks. But we want to make it a safe, you can debate, and Curtis and I will. And by the way, he changed my mind on some of those things. But, two old guys, we have to mix it up from time to time. But we ought to try not to do it to a very aggressive degree on our call. So I just wanted to apologize for folks, from my perspective, for getting a little intense. And we don't need that on these calls. I think that's all I have, Jessica.
All right, Maureen, do you have anything else before we go on?
Yeah, just a reminder, our COVID-19 hotline phone number is 303-778-1130, extension 219. And then also, you can always reach out to assistance@nfbco.org. And I just want to highlight tomorrow, we're going to be having a blind parents panel. I'm really excited about this. We're going to be having David Needfeld and Ina Batron and Pippi Adams. So we're going to be having a dad, a single mom, and then a mom with 5 kids. Woo! So it's going to be a really great panel, a really great learning experience for all of us, whether we have kids or not. So I really encourage you to get onto that. And of course, the rest of our calls this week. And I'll turn it over to Jess.
All right. Well, we're going to have an excellent call tonight. We have Anahit LaBarre with us, who is a senior services specialist at the Colorado Center for the Blind. Phenomenal mother, just all around, really strong advocate, a really wonderful person to get to know. And she is going to share her story with us tonight. So I will let her take it away because it's a really cool one to hear.
All right.
All right, and then
Wait a minute. Okay.
There you go.
I first need to learn how to unmute myself. Okay, so just so you know, you guys, it's I know some people have a hard time believing, but I really don't. Public speaking is very, very hard for me. It's not easy, especially when it comes to, sharing something that's kind of personal to me. And I get very confused as to which part to share and which part to leave out. There's so much. I will start by saying that I can't possibly thank every person who has helped me throughout my life. I can't, because there has been so many, and I just have been a very lucky person in terms of, having so many people around me. Hang on a second. That care deeply and, will share support and love. And I am just very, very lucky to have all the people that I know around me all throughout my life. And I always get nervous when I start saying thank you, because I don't want to leave anybody out. So this is why I decided, I'm just going to say I'm really grateful to everyone in my life. So I was born in Armenia, and Armenia is a tiny little country in former Soviet Union. It is a country now. It was just a republic back then. And it was me, my sister, and my mom and dad. So my sister and I are 14 months apart, very close in age. And we basically grew up like twins, because my parents have made the decision to hold me back a year so my sister and I could go to school together, because the other alternative was, I remember my mom taking me to the school for the blind in Armenia. And it was a residential school, so I would need to live there. And literally, all I remember about that school was how gray it was. So the entire thing was this dark gray color. And I don't remember much else other than I told my mom I never ever want to be here again. and neither did she. So we just made one trip, and my parents made the decision that I was not going to go to the school for the blind. So I was born with an unknown condition, something genetic that pops up once in hundreds generations. And I still don't know what I had. The fact was that I was born with very cloudy corneas, and as the time went on, my vision was getting worse, progressively worse. They also thought I had glaucoma. So the best eye doctors were in Russia. So my parents took me to Russia, and when I was 1, and the doctor said, "Oh my gosh, this child has the most awful glaucoma I have ever seen in my life. We need to do a surgery right now." So they did a surgery, and he said that he needed to have a 1-year follow-up. So my parents took me back when I was 2, and to the same guy, the same doctor who performed the surgery. And he took a look at my eyes and said, "Who is the idiot that did the surgery on this kid? Because she never had glaucoma." So my mom says, "Well, I'm sorry, but I have to tell you, it was actually you who did the surgery." So that was kind of an interesting. I would like to be in that room as an adult just to witness that one. But so the truth is, nobody knows what I had. And the fact of the matter was that I just couldn't see. I couldn't see details. I was not able to read print without having my nose basically in the paper. In fact, I always had a small little blue print on my nose, because when I was writing, I always had my nose literally in the paper without exaggeration. So it was very difficult to be in a place where blind people just don't do anything, period, end of story. So in my country, growing up, all blind people lived in one building, and they all went to the same place to work. Ironically enough, it was a light bulb factory. So don't, I didn't come up with this. This is a real thing. So anyway, so I did not want to live that life, and my parents did not want me to live that life. So they held me back a year, and I went to school with my sister. I was a good student. I loved school. I absolutely loved school. I was a crazy person. Like it was something I was good at. It was something I really enjoyed. My parents had to fight and come and take books away from me. I couldn't wait for everybody to go to sleep so I could go and hide under the blanket with a lamp so I could read and study more, because it took me, a lot more time to read one page than a sighted person would. I went through public school and basically grad school with my sister. So we did the same thing together for 15 years. And she was my reader, and she was basically my guide. Now being a mom, I cannot even imagine what a decision it was for my parents, right? And seemingly easy one, but also a difficult one, because it's a lot to ask for of a little kid, like my sister, to always be there. But like, we never felt that way. We felt like we were together. We just grew up like twins. But then there was also always that moment of, she was supposed to protect me, and she was supposed to just be on the lookout so I don't get hurt. So nobody says anything that would hurt my feelings or anything like that. So she was like a little tomboy, protecting me from everything. And I did not like that at all. That was not a feeling I wanted. So, once I started going to school, I had my friends, and I was, one of those nerd kids. And the agreement, this is the funny part and the fun part. And I always, when I say this, I tell kids who are younger and are still going to school, do not try this at home. My sister and I had an agreement that, she would read for me, and I would do all her work. So I basically did double the work, because like for tests, she, poor thing, she wanted nothing to do with any subjects that had more than one number in it. And so I had to, when we had tests, the way it worked in Armenia was we sat at a desk, and whoever sat on the left side had a different test from whoever sat on the right side. And so she would read the test to me off of the blackboard. I'd write it down, solve hers first, and then I would solve mine. And she always got the perfect grade because I had all the time to do that. And then I always got the lower grade because I would run out of time by the time I did 2 tests. And so, I remember one time my math teacher called me in after school, and I thought I was in trouble. And she says, the teachers knew what was going on, and they've never had a student who couldn't see. So they kind of knew what was going on, and they had to kind of go with it, because what other choice did we have? So from then on, they would call me in after school and have me take my test. She'd say, I will dictate the test to you. Sit down here, solve your problems, get the grade you deserve. And so, I enjoyed school a lot, tremendously. I loved geometry. I loved chemistry. I loved literature. And I definitely follow a path that included some sort of a math subject, except once I got, my vision was getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And so once I got to high school age, I really was not able to see, once we got to exponents and things like that, the numbers got smaller, and I really was not able to see that even with a 10 power magnifier. So I kind of had to give up, because at that point you really can't do all the math in your head. You have to write things down, and when you can't see either what's on the page or what you write down, it kind of becomes tricky to keep track of everything. So I pretty much gave up that dream. I mean, I made it just fine through high school and had all good grades, but I knew I was not going to follow a math path. So then I wanted to do psychology. I really wanted to be a psychologist, and that is not something my sister was interested in remotely. So then we kind of settled. We had to make this mutual decision of what college degree we were going to pursue that both of us could agree on. And so we settled on being teachers of Russian language and literature, because both of us seemed, perfectly fine with that. I wanted to do math. Nope, she did not want that, and I couldn't do it by myself. Psychology, nope, she did not. She says, I have no patience for that. So did not want to do that, which was fine. And then, we decided to pursue Russian, literature and language. And so anyway, that was all fine. And we went through 5 years of school, 6 days a week, every day. And by the time we finished, Soviet Union fell apart and there were no Russian schools. So they all closed down. And so we had to, think of plan B. And I certainly did not plan on sitting at home and doing absolutely nothing. Meanwhile, by this time, my vision was really bad. I basically would walk around always staring at the ground or the floor to make sure that I'm not going to trip over something, yet pretending like I really am looking for something. It's not that I can't see, I'm looking for something, because see, culturally, the thing is that you just can't see very well. It's not that you're blind or any of that. You just can't see very well, and it's okay. The really terrible part, the part that made me feel like I did not want to be there at all, was that I had no independence, none whatsoever. I always had to be taken places. And, for those of you who know me, that is so not me. I mean, I want to go where I want to go when I want to go there. And, I always had to play around what was available with other people, so, well, you have to wait until this person can take you. You have to wait. And, everybody was super generous and very, very supportive, but I just couldn't live like that. And I did not want to live like that. And, I wanted to work, except I had to find a place where there are no streets to cross, because you just couldn't cross any streets. So in Armenia, for those of you who have traveled places and have seen a lot of European cities have this, that there are underground crossings. So not only there are crossings, you can cross the street above the ground, but there are also underground crossings, because that way you can cross in many different directions from one point. And so the only way I could possibly plan to find a job is if I found that one job that not only met my needs, but also had an underground crossing there. And so I was very, very lost, didn't quite know what to do. So we had friends whose daughter lived with us because she was studying ballet. She was a ballerina. So she lived with us for a couple of years in Armenia, but she was originally from Canada. So they invited me to go to Canada, and found a friend of theirs over there who sponsored for me to have a corneal transplant. in Canada. So I was 22 at the time, and I had my transplant, and it was really difficult for me to be away from my family. There was our friends were there. I lived with them, but my family was not, and so it was super emotional for me. Very, very difficult to be away and going through a surgery. I did gain quite a bit of vision compared to what I had, which at that point was pretty much non-existent. So I mean, still, I couldn't see much at all, but compared to what I had, it was a lot. So I was able to read print. I'd still have to hold it close, but I was at least able to read print. And so then came back all my dreams and think, oh, maybe I still can do this. You know, maybe I still can learn, you know, go study math, and maybe I still can be a psychologist and study on my own and do the thing that I really, really want to do. And so I lived in Canada for 6 months. While I was there, I had all these thoughts and thinking, okay, what is the most realistic thing? You know, if I go and study psychology, that's going to be a few more years. If I go and study something with math, that's going to be even more years. So what can I do where I can utilize the knowledge that I already have and, you know, actually have a job? So then I started studying English. I listened to all kinds of TV. So what was the guy's name? Now I'm going to forget his name. Oh, you know, the trial, the famous trial, the one where there was a murder and, oh gosh. Anyway, I'm sure who was that?
With O.J. Simpson?
Yes, Simpson, yes,
Okay.
yes. I will tell you, I learned a lot of legal terminology. And that trial was on all day, every day. It didn't matter what channel you switched it to. It was O.J. Simpson trial. So anyway, but I listened to a lot of TV. I listened to a lot of radio, and I tried to pick up, you know, as much English as I possibly could. I had 2 dictionaries with me, and just, you know, studied as much as I could. And then when I went back home, I thought, okay, well, I have enough knowledge. Maybe I could be an interpreter, because this is something that I really would not need a lot of extra work for. So I found a job very close to my home with a company that was, out of all things, selling car parts and cars. My son is very proud of me right now, many years later, I'll tell you. So it was very different. I will tell you guys, for those of you, if you are younger and looking for a job and not finding what you want, let me describe that guy would be in jail for 7 lives and, you know, many more if he was here. So it was very different. I mean, there were no employee rights, none of that. I had to do any job that I possibly could to make money, because at this point, my parents were not working. My dad, who is an engineer, very, very valued worker, but his place of work was closed, and I'll tell you in a minute why. My mom, who was a university professor, had to quit because when Soviet Union kind of fell apart, what happened was the money got converted from, you know, the common Soviet Union money to local money, and everybody lost everything that they had. And since the money got converted, so my mom, as a university professor, wasn't making enough money to pay for her transportation to and from work. And so she basically had to retire in her late 40s, which was, now I understand, gosh, that would be absolutely devastating for me, you know. And as a teacher, it's one of the hardest things to retire from, because you're just so, you know, if you really like what you do, it's really hard to retire from that. So anyway, so really, I was the only person working in the family, and my sister didn't have a job yet. So this person I was working for, I'm just going to describe my working environment. I needed all the money I could possibly get, so I agreed to, I'd have to go and clean the bathrooms early in the morning. And it was not pleasant, trust me. It was an office of all men, and we only had 2 women that worked there, and it was just not very pleasant, but I had to do it. We would not get paid for months. And when I would go in we literally had to go in, have the courage to go in and ask for our pay. And it was not easy. It was hard. We would work very, very late hours, and very abnormal circumstances. People would get yelled at and physically abused, grown workers. And anyway, and I was extremely outspoken at that job. Now looking back, I think, what on earth was I thinking? Obviously this guy was not all together in his head, but anyway, so it was not a very good experience at all. And I worked there for 5 years. But it's something I had to do because that was literally the only income in the house for quite a while. And then my sister got a job, so we were okay, but it just, those were some rough years. And another thing we were going through at the time was the fact that Armenia was actually in a war. And as a result of that, wars are all political, a result of political ambitions. And unfortunately, people get tangled up in there. And once, you lose a loved one, then emotions get involved and it gets very complicated. But as a nation, as a result, the country was blocked from everything. And so we had no power, literally, for 2 years. At the end of the second year, we would have power for an hour a day. We had running water for an hour a day on a good day. And we had no phone service. Now, my dad, since he was an engineer, he knew people who knew people. So somehow we were the only household in an entire building that had a phone. Don't ask me how, but somehow he made it happen. And our house was a phone booth. So people would come in and, make phone calls. And our house was also, because we had the girl from Canada still living with us, our house was also the house that had heat. So we had on the 5th floor in the building, we had to drill a hole in the window and have a pipe go out from a wood burning stove. And only one tiny room in the house had that wood burning stove. The rest did not. So the rest of the house was very cold in the winter. And, since we had no running water, that's basically where our showers were. We'd bring a little tub of water. Anyway, very inconvenient times. But I'll tell you what, looking back now, I am so thankful for the life that I've had. And these were extremely difficult times, you guys. I know it might sound, cheesy, like, oh yeah, your life was so hard, but truly we had no food to eat, literally. So my dad would have to go, and that was his choice. He wanted to be the one who would go and stand in line for bread at 4 a.m. He got his ribs broken once because people get, if you have to get bread, and that is pretty much the only thing that you might have that day, and you have small children, people get very emotional and aggressive and carried away. So the bread we had, the country ran out of grains, and so the bread we had was green, literally. I don't know what it was made out of, but they had to dig into federal reserves and pretty much use anything they could possibly find to make anything that resembled bread in the most remote way. And so, we either ate that or there were starches. So pasta, if we could find it, or, potatoes. So that was pretty much it. The country did not have markets like we have. It was mostly open markets and whatever was in season. So in the winter, it was root vegetables. And in the summer, whatever we could find, we would can. And so that's the only thing we had. But because we were the only household that had heat, people would come from all over the building, and we would sit together and we would share whatever food we had, and they would bring the little bit they had. And so 2 years of complete open doors in a whole building, very, very difficult times. But I will tell you, even though the times were hard, that's when the true nature of people comes out. And I'll tell you, those people that we shared those very, very difficult times with, we're best friends with until now. I mean, you just cannot take that bond apart. And so no electricity, which means, the stubborn me had to study. I still had a goal. I wanted to get the heck out of there. I did not want to live there because I did not want to be taken places. I did not want to depend on somebody at all times. And I wanted a family. I wanted to have kids, and that just was not the expectation for, my country. So I had to study. I didn't have to, but I wanted to study and pass an English proficiency exam. A TOEFL is what they're called for, people who are, for us foreigners. Anyway, so I had to pass that exam, and I also wanted to pursue my dream of studying psychology. I applied for a student exchange program, got through pretty much all of my levels. I just had to, pass the exam. So for that, I was studying in a kitchen that had no heat in the winter and no electricity. So we had, candles, and then when they would melt, we would reshape them into another candle, put the string in the middle, and then burn it all over again. And so for that, I had my fingertips are frozen. And so I have no sensitivity, well, very little sensitivity in my fingertips, except for one finger on my left hand, and that's the one I read Braille with. So I'm super slow, but hey, that's why I tell my seniors, if I can read it, anybody else can read it. So anyway, I that was my goal, and I did fine on my test. Not up to my standard, but it was fine enough to get me into the program. I also did not want to continue working at that same job. So I decided to look for other work, and I had a couple of different jobs. I was working with a program through the Japanese government that came to Armenia to revive the private sector, not to build a private sector, because there was no private sector there before. All the factories were shut down, and there were no places for people to work. So this Japanese program was there to basically introduce private sector to Armenia and revive the factories, and bring the manufacturing back. And I loved that job. I absolutely loved it. I was working there as an interpreter. I loved the culture. I still want to go to Japan so badly because I respect their culture tremendously. It was so on the point. You had to be so timely for everything, and rules were super clear, and you followed the rules, you were great. It paid really well. Unfortunately, it was a contract work. So, once that ran out, then they would go back to Japan. And then whenever they would come back, then they would want to work with me again. upsides, downsides. The upside was it paid really well, that for the period of time that I worked, our whole family could live on that money for a long time until they came back again. But I just decided this was not a good way to, have a sustainable income. That whole entire time I've been trying to work with the Armenian Association for the Blind, and they finally hired me as an interpreter. So I started working there. So it was me and 2 other blind people. Everybody else there was sighted. The 2 other blind people were the executives. There were no employees that were not executives that were blind at all. In fact, that was the trouble. That was why I didn't get hired for many, many years. Anyway, so that got done, and once I started working with them, I started attending international conferences. But the fun part was, when I was working with them, they had these stacks of different materials, print materials, and they were just sitting there and nobody was looking at them because they were all in English, and nobody could read English or understand it sufficiently enough. And so, as I was going through those piles, I saw the Braille monitors, and I was like, "Oh, what are these? Can I take them home and read them?" And they said, "Oh God, yeah, take them. They're just sitting here and doing nothing. So yes, absolutely, take them." And I remember, looking through the Braille monitors, and here are all these blind people. They're like doing things, and no barriers, basically, doing all kinds of things. And I thought, this is the life I want. I don't want to be stuck here. And the truth is, one thing I wanted to mention is that as I was looking for a job, I cannot even begin to tell you how grateful I am to my family. And particularly, obviously my sister sacrificed a lot to help me out. But boy, my mom pushed me way beyond my comfort zone every time. And she was there to, no dream was crazy enough. I would come home and say, I think I want to do this. And my sister would say, well, I think you're here, we'll help you, don't worry about it. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. I want to do this. And my mom would say, okay, what do you need from me? We would go and I'd say, Mom, I want to work. I want to work in an environment where I'm respected. So we'd go to US Embassy and she would read the announcements, the job announcements to me. And they were placed on a door, I don't know, like 50 feet behind the fence. And so we would stand behind the fence, and my mom literally, she did not speak English. She studied German in school. And so she would spell the words out word by word through the whole announcement. And she'd say, she'd get to what the job position was. And I was like, nope, let's go on to the next one. Let's go on to the next one. Let's go on to the next one. And they would post all kinds of, positions for different offices and things like that. And, once you get, I was desperately trying to get into something, and I wasn't able to, because wherever I applied, nobody hired me. And once you get into interpreting communities, people know people, and they, if you do a good work, and they'll say, okay, I recommended, that's how I got my interpreting job, was the Japanese government through a friend who saw me working. I also worked for an Armenian presidential campaign, and we complain about our presidential elections. So over there, we had the international observers who came, and they would bring the sacks of ballots, and the sacks were unsealed and the ballots were unsealed. And these poor international observers, I thought they were going to get a heart attack or a stroke right there. But they were like, wait, we cannot accept these. And the people, they were like, you're fine, don't worry about it, it's going to be fine. And they couldn't do anything. They could just report that this was not a fair election, and that was pretty much it. So I had, many different experiences, but yet very little independence. And I wanted out of there. So as I started attending conferences. My first conference was in Prague, in Czech Republic, and that's where I met Harold Snyder, and we just talked, and I was explaining to him how I'm going through this application for student exchange and how I want to study at the university, and he was saying, I don't think you have the slightest idea about what it's going to take you to study at the university in US. And he was saying, can you get around on your own? Can you read Braille? Are you okay with technology? And I was like, nope, I just do everything visually. And it's like, yeah, well, that's not going to work. If you want to do, real graduate type of work, you're going to have to have all these skills. So let me see if I can, find a place, if we can find a way to get you to the United States for training. And so he connected me with Colorado Center for the Blind, and poor Julie, I keep apologizing to her because I kept calling her in the middle of the night because of the time difference. And, after a lot of work and back and forth and a lot of details to be figured out, I finally, we made it work for me to come here to the United States. And it was a huge, huge decision. I still, my dad thought that I was betraying my country, and that was a horrible choice, and that it was selfish of me to, in a way, leave the family and come here. Now as a parent, I understand I would never want my kids to be that far. I really, really wouldn't. So I can understand his pain a lot more now, a lot better, because I'm a parent now. But, I can also appreciate my mom as, she's probably the most emotional human being on this planet. She can literally sit there and watch a petal of the flower fall off and she can cry. And, for her to have the strength to understand that this is something that I needed, and to let go and let me go across the world to a place where I did not know anybody at all. Like, I knew nobody in Colorado. Linda and Harold Snyder were super nice. They got me to DC. They had me stay with them for a week. They taught me so much. It was very touching, very sweet. From little things to, okay, I know this is overwhelming, but when you go to a grocery store, this is what needs to happen. And this is, the little things. And then I came to Colorado in January of 2001. And, wouldn't you know it? It was a blizzard, huge blizzard. We lived in an apartment that had metal stairs, and I had to climb those metal stairs. And I thought, this is the worst choice I have ever made in my whole entire life. It's going to be a blizzard every day, and I'm never going to get out of here. And and I want my family, and just everything was very dark for the first couple of days. But it was an extremely emotional journey for me to be here. But again, I cannot express my gratitude to everybody that I have met from that day on. A lot of my coworkers now were my teachers. Sean was my teacher. And I don't remember who it was, but somebody took me to the store. I think it was Merle, to the grocery store, literally just as I came, that first day, and said, all right, so what do you want to buy? And I was like, I have not the slightest clue. I don't know what half this stuff is. I don't know anything. I was so overwhelmed. I did not know much at all. The culture was just completely different. The language was different because the English I knew, people wouldn't understand things I said. And And I was like, come on, I worked as an interpreter, right? It couldn't be that bad. But anyway, it was a big adjustment. But I remember the year I came, Julie, I was so sad on my birthday because it's the day before my mom's birthday, and we just have this very special bond, and I was just not very happy. And I remember Julie called me and said, how about you come to my house for your birthday, and we're gonna have dinner together. And I went to her house, and she says, Colorado is just so dry, so I got you this little present. And she got me some lotion. And seriously, that was like a turning point for me, because I thought, okay, this is home. Sorry. See, this is why I don't like doing it. Anyway, so it was very emotional, lots of ups, lots of downs. I couldn't wait to be done with training because I wanted to move on. I wanted to tackle life. I couldn't wait to do things. And I was like, yes, this is great. I can go places all on my own, and I can get lost and then found. And, it was just very exciting. I met very, very good group of friends while I was at the center. And then, of course, I met Scott, and that was great. And he was just so supportive and always very understanding. And poor guy, he had to put up with a lot of crying, I'll tell you, because I was just an emotional roller coaster then and now. But anyway, that's a whole different story. But and then we got married and had our wonderful kiddos. And I just want people to know, it's, when Jessica asked me, I'm like, I don't like speaking in front of people. I know this is not in front of people, but still it's emotional for me, because I don't know what to share, what to leave out at the end of the conversation. I told Jess, I said, you know what, if it makes a difference for one person, I'll do it. And if it makes a difference for one person, if somebody hears something in what I shared, what do I want people to get out of this? I guess maybe that I look back at my life, and truly, I think that with all the hardships and with all the difficulties that I've had and that we've had as a family, really growing up, I think really all of those things were a gift in a way that we did not know, that I did not understand until I was a lot more mature. I had to do a lot of self-reflection growing up, especially as a teenager. It was very difficult for me to find a reason to go on and keep going. Not easy, but I had to look way deep down and understand that, maybe I had some things to share as well. I had to find things in me that I believed in strongly. And that's why people who know me know I am extremely intense. I speak what I think. And if you know me, you know exactly how I think on things. And it's because I know, you live once. We can pretend, but I think overall we're here to work with each other, and we're here to support each other and make this place a better place. And I believe it very strongly. Everything I believe strongly. My family will tell you I am a very intense person. It's, sometimes not easy to be around me, but I think I want to make things happen. I want life to be better for others. So I'm now working as a senior services specialist. I work with seniors, and I love my job. dearly. Seriously, I think I am. It's a gift to work with people that we work with. I love our team. Our team is great. I think we do very, very good work together. And, you know, I now am looking to switch my career a little bit, go from one kind of part of the spectrum of age to the other and be a teacher of younger kiddos. It's interesting to me that I fought being a teacher tooth and nail when I was young. And I was, you know, telling my sister, I do not want to be a teacher at all. And here I am, right, killing myself trying to get my master's and being a teacher of kids who are visually impaired or blind, you know. So I think I now understand that I really enjoy working with people one-on-one. I really enjoy sharing what I know. I want people to believe in themselves and believe that they can do things. And I hope to make a difference for as many as possible. And it's not going to be for everybody, because, you know, I talked so much. I didn't even talk about the fact how I came about to, you know, accept and start using a cane all the time. It was not easy for me. You know, I would only use a cane where I would go places and would say, oh gosh, I know this place. It's fine. I don't need a cane here. I'm good. And what made a difference for me is that a friend of mine came to me one time and said, so, you know, we have these friends and they come to me because they know I know you, and they'll say, well, so is she blind or is she not blind? Because sometimes we see her with a cane and sometimes we see her without a cane. So it's very confusing. We don't understand. And, you know, I came home and I'm like, okay, this is not good. I mean, what is it that I'm projecting, right? That I'm very unsure about myself and I don't know who I am and how I feel about things. And so, you know, that's when I made the decision that, you know what, I'm just going to have to be okay. And it's all right. You know, if somebody doesn't like the fact that I carry a white cane, then I'm sorry about that. That's too bad. You know, I think one of the best gifts that my journey has given me, honestly, throughout my life is just discovering things about myself and learning about myself and learning what is it that I can give to this world to make it a better place. Anyway, there you go. That's my story.
Am I unmuted, Kev? Oh, Anahit, awesome. That I was crying too. I was thinking about when you were talking about your mom. I was just thinking about like how wonderful it is to have great moms. And
yeah.
Now you're a great mom too. I want to find out if anybody has questions for Anahit. You can raise your hand by using the *9, or on the app, it's under the More sections. We can take a few questions if Anahit is okay with that.
Sure.
All right. Megan.
Hi. So I'm actually in the process of trying to get into Colorado Center for the Blind. I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada, and I started my case a while ago. It got slowed down again because of the corona outbreak. I just want to say I think your story is incredible. I met Julie Keating one time, and I remember like thinking, man, this woman seems really nice, and like feeling like this story about like when you were talking about her getting you like a lotion, like I was thinking, wow, like she really is as nice as she seems.
She really is. When you get here, you will find out. She cares a lot. She'll push you when you need to be pushed, but then she'll also give you a hug when you need a hug. So that's the best part.
Edith.
Well, this is Dale. I had her push the button.
Hi, Edith.
Okay. My voice is low.
Yeah.
I didn't hear much about your dad after you started leaving Armenia. Is he still alive, or has he passed?
No, he's alive. He is an incredible, my dad is like a math genius. When we were visiting there, my son couldn't believe it. You can give him, 4-digit numbers to multiply by each other. And Alex couldn't punch in the numbers fast enough into the calculator by the time my dad spits out the answer. So he just retired a couple of years ago when he turned 75, I believe. He just turned 80 now. He worked for a very, very long time. He is an absolute workaholic. Retirement was not easy for him. He loved working, and he loved, it was so cute because when we went to Armenia, he would take the kids to places that still would contract with him, and he would do like their electrical panels and wiring and things like that. So there were, all these cute little cafes and places, and he'd take the kid and say, "See, your grandpa did all the wiring for this one." So yeah, he's a super smart guy, and loves the kids, and he feels bad that he can't spend a lot of time with my kids, obviously. And culturally, everyone wants a son there. So if you don't have a son, then you want a grandson, and he has a grandson, except he's not very close physically to him. So
right.
But,
so
yeah.
I have a question for you, Anahit.
Yes, ma'am.
Are your parents still in the same building? Have they moved into a house?
Nope, they're still in the same building. They're still, in fact, when we went back home, it was so funny because our apartments, if you guys have been to Europe, things are very, very small there. So our kitchen probably is the size of our bathroom now. It's tiny, tiny, tiny. And when we went there, Alex kept asking me, "Mom, where did you eat dinner?" And I'm like, "Right here." And he goes, "No, I mean, like, where did you sit down as a family and eat dinner?" I'm like, "Right here." He goes, "Yeah, but there's a cabinet hanging over your head." I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "What if you stood up?" I'm like, "Well, you just had to be very careful." So that's all. They are still in the same apartment, and it's so good to be back in that apartment. I will tell you, I love that. However old and beat up it is, it's the place I grew up in. So it's tiny and it's cute, and it's like, yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Bianca.
I was just wondering, was there ever a time when you felt really sure of yourself back when you were a kid? And I mean, I know you were dependent all the time, but was there anything at all you could do independently before you got all that training and all that?
So Bianca, I love you, first of all. I miss you. And the only place I felt 1 bazillion % in control was academics. I was very good at school. And that was where I had no doubt, I was good at that. I had good days, I had bad days. I got some bad grades, obviously, but it was something where, I felt myself, was the academics. Other than that, at home, obviously, I was loved, and I loved my family. So that was really good. My sister and I had an incredible bond. So I was always sure about the relationships I had, the friends I had, the family I had. And I was always confident in my academics. So those were the 2 things that I felt good about.
Maureen.
Hey, Anahit, I just wanted to tell you that we love you so much, and we listened to your story as a family, and we laughed with you, and we cried with you, and you are such an amazing, special person, and you've really touched our family. And your story was so amazing. I've known you for a lot of years now, and it was incredible to hear your history. And I really appreciate that you did this for all of us. And it really also, my gosh, you know, I feel even more grateful for the things that we just take for granted. Like, you didn't have heat, you didn't have food, and we have so much and we take it for granted. And so thank you for sharing that, because I think it's important for us to realize that, especially in what's going on for all of us, you know, for the world right now and for our country, that we have so much.
I know. Thank you, Maureen. I appreciate it. And, you know, it is true. And sometimes I feel bad. I don't want anybody, when I share what I say, I don't want anybody to feel guilty in any way that we have the things we have, because this is normal, right? This is the life we live. And unfortunately, circumstances are that way. But I am telling you, you know, I hear people who have gone through depression and turn out kind of bitter or worried about every cent that they spend or not spend or things like that. Going through this experience really has taught me that nothing material matters. It almost doesn't. You know, what matters is the relationships you have, and really the connections you have and the bonds you have. Because I'll tell you what, when there is nothing to eat, there is nothing to eat. For those who have tons of money, for those who have no money. When everybody's in trouble, just like right now, right? This coronavirus thing, we're at home, we're all at home. You know, these things are such equalizers, you know, things that are global, things that are not just, you know, socioeconomic or anything like that. They are the greatest equalizers for better or worse. And then, you know, it just really makes you reevaluate things and appreciate what truly matters.
It really does. Thank you, Anahit.
Susan Gangler.
Yes, Anahit. Fantastic.
Yes,
I
so
just
good
love
to hear you.
Yes, it's good to hear your voice. And I just really enjoyed your talk, and just with, you know, second this with this whole virus thing that's going on, and just your story allows us to know that we can push forward and we can get through this. And just a great job, Anahit. Really enjoyed it. And it's great hearing your voice.
Of course. Thank you. Thanks for being there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We have Jan, and then we'll close it out with Scott.
Uh-oh.
Hi.
I'm not going to let him heckle you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yeah, Jen.
Oh, yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Oh, yes. Okay. So I really enjoyed your story. Some of it rang very, very true for us. My husband is from Pakistan, so some of the story about having to write your everything or find different ways for you to go to college and find different kind of workarounds for you to succeed certainly is familiar. My question is, has your family ever come here and seen how you live here? And I don't know how old your children are, but I didn't know if you already teach them. For example, I don't know if your children are visually impaired or if they're not, but I don't know if you have already kind of had some teaching experience because you teach your children.
Yeah, so thank you for the question. And my family has been here. All of them have been here. And it's interesting because out of all people, you know, my mom is actually losing her vision now. And when she's here, she says, "Oh, can I use your cane? You know, is that okay?" So she's 100% supportive of me using the cane. My sister has the hardest time. It's very difficult for her. So when she's here, she'll say, well, you don't need this right now. I'm here. You don't have to worry about this. So it's kind of hard for me to explain that, you know, this is how I live. This is my life, you know. So, but they all have been here. My mom has been here multiple times. So she helped us a lot with when the kids were very young. And that was wonderful that she could share that with us. My dad has been here as well. And he did not care much for being here. He is not very good. He's a math mind. He does numbers. He doesn't do languages. So it was very difficult. The language barrier was hard for him. And he was anxious to get back. My kids are 15 and 17. I am a person who, if you know me, you know I am extremely passionate about education. I believe in it wholeheartedly. I think it's a wonderful gift that we need to give our children. And I was very involved in their school while they were growing up. I still am. And yeah, that's partly why, you know, when you have kids who go through school, you see the ups and downs of education system and just kind of see where you might be able to help or make things better for others. So yeah. Did that answer your question?
I should write it down. And then Scott.
Well, I promised my wife I wouldn't ask any questions, and I won't.
Thank you.
But now you know why I am proud of her and love her so much. But one of the things I think you didn't include is this guy you worked for at the car dealership or whatever it was really, literally, truly a mafia boss.
He really was.
And we learned just this past year that he was shot in a public place by one of his rivals. I mean, it's like a movie. So I thought that'd be just a little interesting tidbit to share. But thank you, Anahit, for doing this. I mean, you truly do live the life you want, and you embody our spirit in the Federation more than anyone I really know. So thank you.
Yeah, I was just on a you know, interesting note. I was telling my kids about the boss that I had, and when I was saying, oh, he was like a mafia, the kids were like, yeah, mom, you know, you're 48 years old, mafia to you is completely different. Come on, you know. But I Googled the guy, and I was showing my son, you know, multiple articles about how this poor guy was murdered, and how they found, like, I don't know, $25,000 in his pocket, and the suitcase was $250,000 was stolen, and the bodyguard was missing, and the car was missing. Alex was like, whoa, Mom, this is cool. I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm telling you.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, and in addition to all the qualifications that I have, I also worked for a mafia.
Well, Anahit, thank you again so much for sharing your story. And I know it's not only going to be helpful to people who were on this call, but we do have all of these sessions archived on YouTube. It's the National Federation of the Blind of Colorado YouTube channel. So you can share this with other people, or you know, go back if there's ever anything that you want to capture from one of our sessions that you weren't able to attend. And thanks everybody for being here, and have a wonderful night.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. You too. It's been really cool.
Bye. Night. Stay happy.
Nobody else knows all the time. Good night.